want to turn the channel, go ahead, fool. Turn the channel.
We've seen midgets grow. Mandada basata. I don't make this stuff up.
Warlocks are enemies of God.
A lot of people who go into prison go into prison straight, and when they come out, they're gay.
Science is interesting, and if you don't agree, you can f*** off.
Well, I'm not too righteous, but on the other hand, I think you're a bit of a ding-a-ling.
If you want to learn something about God, shut your mouth and listen to me for a minute.
Welcome to the AxPx episode 3 of season 3. I am Sean DeRager, and hope you all had a fantastic Halloween. I know that we did. We did the whole trick-or-treat thing and trying to keep track of our kids as they ran ahead of us, and they're all suffering from sugar hangovers this morning, or today. So today's guest is Ronn Compestine, and Ron and I kind of met over from just kind of like when with Blake through the Screamcast. We got to kind of talking back and forth through there, and then through some things found out that Ron is also a Christian, which makes me, it's like there's a lot of Christians listening to the Screamcast, which is awesome. But the reason why I wanted to have Ron on today is because we just got through October, and as I've said on the show before, and I've even said in the Screamcast before, is October is a rough month for my wife's family, for me, and then we had suffered through another like friend, another death, a friend dying, my next door neighbor dying at the beginning of October, and kind of threw my October into kind of upside down, dealing with that, because normally October is one of my favorite months. It's my birthday is during that month. It's Halloween, one of my favorite holidays, and just it seems like every year there's more and more dealing with kind of the aftershocks of grief. And you and I were talking on Facebook, Ron, and you had mentioned your story. So I was like, well, it'd be great to have Ron on. I don't know, this conversation may be a bummer to some people. I don't know. If you've suffered through grief or anything like that, that's my hope, is that you can listen to this podcast and kind of get some reassurance and know that, you know, there's a way more people going through these than maybe you're aware of. So Ron, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. I wanted to kind of start with how you grew up, like your religious background, your Christian background, and we can, I guess, move along the conversation from there.
I didn't really grow up in like a strong Christian home. I would say when I was in maybe like first or second grade, we started going to church on a somewhat irregular basis. Mm-hmm. And then we just kind of, like you do, you get busy, and we didn't really put church as a priority. So I would probably say when I was in about third grade, we had this couple that lived across the street from us they were probably about 10 years older than my parents. And then they asked us to go to church with them, and then it was a Assembly of God, basically just a non-denominational Christian church. So we started going to church with them, and then my parents ended up going. So we were pretty active in that church, I would say, up until I was probably in junior high. Mm-hmm. I had really great parents, great values and stuff. It's just, I wouldn't say that Jesus or the Bible was a big focus. You know, I was brought up really well to do the right thing, and just...
You weren't like under the thumb of religion per se, you know?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Probably when I got into like junior high, we kind of quit going to church again, just because I didn't really see it as a big priority. I was always kind of like, when I was younger in church, I accepted Jesus as my personal savior, and, you know, I got bored a lot though, like most kids do, you know, when you're in church and sitting through the sermons and stuff. And so, you know, when my parents didn't really make us go every week, you know, it didn't really bother me. I mean, a lot of times when you're a kid, you want to do other things than go to church sometimes. So yeah. To do it. So yeah, and then pretty much through like junior high and high school, I didn't really go to church hardly that much. I had a best friend that was, his family was Mormon, and he was kind of the same way. Like his parents forced him to go to church, and then I think finally at some point they just gave up, you know, because they knew he wasn't gonna, you know, conform to their beliefs and everything. So I think sometime after high school, when I was going to college, I met some Christians, and I kind of got back into it. Cause started going to a few different churches just because I was kind of wanting something a little bit more, just because like certain churches would kind of pick and choose from the Bible and things like that. So and then when I met my wife when we were going to college, I moved over to Spokane where I live now to go to school, and then I met her, and then I've been going to her church ever since. So for about 12 years now. It's called Faith Bible Church. It's a non-denominational Christian church. So I've just been kind of went off and on, and the church I'm in now, I'm really happy with. It's a really great group of people, and it feels more like a family than anything, and really great teachings and everything. So I'm really happy with it. So kind of glad I found it.
Cool. Is that a church you feel like you can be honest with the people that you know? Like you said, more of a family setting, or
yeah, I mean everybody's really cool. Especially, I mean, the growth group that we're in. We've had people in the past, once they find out I'm really into horror movies, they kind of, I don't know if they like judge me, but they're just kind of like, how they can be like, like, how can you be a Christian and watch that stuff? Or
yeah. Yeah, I used to work for a company called C2 They had a Christian clothing line called NOTW, and the owner was, I ran into that at that job, because I was super into horror movies, and even my immediate boss was the owner's sister, and she was into horror movies too. Or she had bought Rosemary's Baby, and she was all excited about watching Rosemary's Baby again. And we would always get into weird conversations with the owner because he was in the weekly Bible studies. He would call out certain movies like Hellboy and things like that, and I can't believe anyone would watch those movies. So there's always that, over the company, we always had that. Talking with him, he always would look down on any of us because there's me and a few other people who liked scary movies or punk rock or hardcore. It's good that you don't feel that from that church overall. I mean, yeah, people will kind of give you some looks, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like something I openly talk about at church.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It up, but I mean, especially like on Facebook, I'm always posting what I'm watching and stuff. So I'm sure there's people out there just kind of like, what the hell is he watching now? Yeah.
When did you start getting into horror movies and punk rock and stuff like that? Was that more high school or?
I've always liked horror movies. Actually, my dad and I, who's kind of I probably started watching them a little too young. I was probably like 9. But like my dad he loved horror movies too. And so we'd watch like the Friday the 13th movie every time it came out on video. So it was kind of a tradition that we'd have. And so, but yeah, my parents were pretty lenient as far as what I watched. I was probably watching stuff a little too young, but I kind of got into punk in like high school. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or like because I had a friend that was really into like metal. And so I kind of probably like 5th or 6th grade, got into metal and moved into more of like, like the SoCal punks. I was in high school and stuff. So
that's interesting because like my journey into like punk rock and metal and stuff like that was totally out of like defiance of what my parents wanted me to listen to. And I think the same thing with horror movies. It's interesting, like no matter what background I think you have, if you're kind of wired for that kind of nonconformist mentality, I think you always end up finding punk rock and horror movies and stuff like that. I think it finds you in a way.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny now because some of my wife's friends are all like dyeing their hair like pink and all these weird colors, and I'm like, when I was in high school, that was, I mean, it's just like soccer moms and stuff now are dyeing their hair, and it's just like back when we were in high school, like everybody thought we were crazy for having like green hair.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm always wondering what my kids are what they're gonna do to rebel, because I know it's coming. I know it's gonna happen, and it's just maybe it'll be in like a positive way.
Yeah.
They'll rebel by getting good grades and studying like law or something. So you kind of had a moderate Christian background, nothing too crazy. I was brought up very strict Christian background, and I think that kind of molded me with who I am today, and kind of, like when you run into the big questions, I felt like I couldn't ask my parents the big questions because they would get frustrated and just say, no, you just need to believe. But you were kind of raised in a more kind of easygoing, like kind of figure this out on your own. Did your parents play a role in like teaching you or molding you on the facts of life as far as who God was or anything, or was it just something that they were letting you discover?
When I was younger, like I remember having a few talks with my dad, the basics and stuff. I mean, because he wasn't like, he grew up Catholic, and so he kind of rejected that after he moved out and got married and everything. So I just remember having talks with him about, who Jesus Christ was when I was really young, and, how to accept him as my personal savior, and praying together and things like that. So just kind of basic discussions that we had and stuff. But.
Yeah. What sparked kind of me wanting to bring you on and was our things that we've gone through personally with people close to us dying. And you told me that within a year and a half, both of your parents passed away.
I guess I'll kind of start with my mom, because my actually still living at home, because I got my AA where I grew up. So I got my AA there, and then I moved 2 hours away to where I met my wife to go to school, and then she actually moved about 4 hours away because, like when we met, she had already planned on going to this other school. So we were dating about a year, and then she ended up moving there, and then I moved back home for about a year because there was some classes I wanted to take at home. So I figured since she's moving back, I'll move back home and everything. So, and when I moved back home, it seemed like every weekend I was going to visit her and stuff. And so one of the weekends I came home, I found out my mom she'd just been diagnosed with lung cancer. Well, she went in and they found like a growth, but at first I didn't know it was cancer. So that was a really hard time because I'd never dealt with anyone with cancer before, and I knew lung cancer was really bad. So there was like a few months there where, she was going to the doctor a lot. And then by the time she was actually diagnosed, I had actually moved back to Spokane, to finish up school and everything. And so during the time that she was diagnosed, it would have been like around 2001. And so she ended up living for about 4 years because it seemed like she was going through chemo, and they would get it, they would wait a few months, and then it just seemed like it kept coming back and coming back. And so around the time she passed away, she'd had chemo like around 5 or 6 different times, so she just couldn't have any more chemo, and she ended up dying from basically just like her whole body shutting down. That was really hard because I think my parents kind of shielded me from a lot of what was going on because they didn't want me to worry and stuff like that. Right. So around that time, I was just kind of, I don't know if I was mad at God, but I was just kind of like, why is this happening to me? And I'm just like, I don't know. It was just like a lot of emotions going through you and stuff. And it was just really hard. And then when my mom passed away in about 2005, and I would go home as much as I could to visit my dad and stuff because he took it pretty hard because they were obviously they were married over like 30 years. Yeah. So it was just rough. And I noticed he had started going back to church around. Him and my mom actually like a year or two before she passed away, they got really active in a friend of theirs church, which was really nice to see. So because for a while they hadn't really been active in any church or anything. So about a year and a half later, it was right before my wife and I were going to get married. It was about a month before we were going to get married. Her and her mom went to Ireland, so I was like house sitting for them. So one morning I woke up and I had like 7 voicemails, and I was like, oh, that's strange. And so I got a call from my stepbrother that I guess my dad had an aneurysm.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't really know any details. I didn't really know much about aneurysms, but they flew him over to Spokane where I lived, and it was like the worst one you could have. So that was like on a Friday, and he ended up passing away like 2 days later.
Oh, wow.
It was just so surreal because I had talked to him a couple days before on the phone, and you never expect that it's going to be the last time you talk to him.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, that was October, like yourself, because that was October 1st that he passed away. So within a year and a half, losing both your parents. And then at that time, I was just kind of, it's kind of hard to explain what I just kind of, we would go to church, but I just kind of withdrew because
when anyone goes through grief or you lose someone, it's almost like you're in a daze. I mean, I feel like, and it was just my neighbor, but he was a cool guy. But I mean, I felt like just after his death, the next 2 weeks almost flew by because I was just, every day was kind of a blur because you're just kind of in shock in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So with you, I would imagine that would be amplified.
Especially with my dad, because it happened so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, with my mom, I was always optimistic, even though I knew, there wasn't a high percentage of her, surviving from it, but it was like several years. So even though you have a lot of time to prepare for it, you still can't really prepare for something like that. So
yeah. So you kind of withdrew from church. Would you just go and leave, or you talk to anybody, or what was that kind of your relationship with church like at that point?
At that point, we would go to church. We didn't really, I wouldn't say we had a lot of friends at church around that time. There was like acquaintances that we knew, but it just kind of seemed like we'd go to church. As soon as it was over, leave. We didn't really, weren't really involved with any, ministries or any extra things outside of just going to church. So I think for a while there I was not going on a super consistent basis, so it's not like I was like missing it on purpose, but if something came up, or if like maybe I was out too late the night before, maybe didn't get up on time, things like that, I just didn't make it a priority. So
were you feeling like more kind of just complacent with your faith, or what was going on there with your relationship with God at that point?
I would say I was complacent, just kind of, it seemed like I was just going to church to go to church. I wasn't really getting anything out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Going through the motions and not really, I was just kind of withdrawing from God just because, just questioning why, he let, something like this happen, so close together, and just, I don't know, I just kind of withdrew for a while. I really wasn't discussing anything with my wife. I just kind of kept it to myself. Just got, it's probably better to talk about it with her at the time, but I just kind of felt like, oh, I'm fine. I'll just, keep it inside, things like that.
Yeah. And that's always, I think I do the same thing. You're told it's always best to talk your feelings out and everything. Maybe guys like us, maybe it's a personality trait or something like that. But I always keep things kind of closed in and try to deal with them on my own, and until something kind of triggers me to, react in anger or something like that. Did anything like that happen to you? Did you keep it bottled up till you couldn't any longer, or how did you start, I guess, coming to grips with everything as far as like this is the new reality, I need to move on from here? Like, was there anything that kind of caused that realization that you just had to go on? Or
after a while I kind of realized that I was kind of being selfish in a way, just because I'm like, well, I've seen people around me deal with grief as well. Some people even worse than what I've gone through. And there was a guy at our church, he was probably in his early 30s, and he was diagnosed with cancer and ended up passing away. But the way he dealt with it, and he just kind of was super happy, had grace, and just, he was still active in the church up until the time he passed away. And I just kind of saw things like that around me, and I was like, well, I came to grips with it, just trusting God, and I just kind of think I was being a little selfish at the time, It's understandable in a way, but we kind of became more active in the church and started talking to some great people. And I kind of prayed more and just kind of tried to be more active in ministries, had a great growth group, and then I kind of help with like children's ministry and stuff like that.
So you started kind of trying to give back to those around you through the church, in a way. With me, like what happened with me was I kind of did a deconstruction of my faith and kind of broke it all down and started from square one. Did you have anything like that for you? Were you close to just kind of giving up on God and all that, or did you not go through that?
I wouldn't say I was close to just like giving up completely. I still liked the doctrine of our church and everything, and I kind of withdrew, but I still had faith. But it was, there were times there where I was very, wasn't really participating at all. I was just kind of doing the very minimal. So, I mean, but there was a point there where I was kind of thought long and hard, about what I believed and what, and I was able to get answers, because for a couple of years ago, we had, there's like these classes they have every once in a while where, you can bring up, deep questions and stuff like that you have. And I got some really good answers there, so.
What were some of the deep questions? Do you remember any of the deep questions you had and the answers you received back?
One of them that I had was, was dealing with the circumstances that I went through, basically dealing with how God is sovereign, and at the time conflicts with that. And there was a guy at our church that he had this like 2-hour class, basically going deep into that, and I just felt really convicted after going through that. That's probably one of the main ones that I remember.
What was the main conviction you were feeling through that class?
I trusted in God up until that point, and partly was I wasn't really putting any effort into it at the time too. I mean, I wasn't really praying. I wasn't trusting in God, as far as aspects of my life and stuff like that. I think after putting in a lot of effort towards that and just praying more, and then just kind of trusting in God at that point. So
up to that point, like how much had you spent like with the Bible? Is it just as you're in church? Did you try to study it more? What's been your, up to this point, what was your relationship with the Bible itself?
Yeah, up until that point, I mean, I didn't really spend a lot of time really outside of our Bible study, it's, and even then I would just kind of like read through the chapter that we were going through and just kind of answering the questions. Since then, it's made me want to go into specific books, just get as much as I can. And the way we do it now, it's kind of nice. We go through like 2 books a year in our growth group, and it goes in pretty deep. And then a lot of the questions that are addressed aren't really just kind of like basic answers. You go really deep into each chapter and stuff. So that's really helped a lot. We're also doing a thing they're really big on, because a lot of the elders and leaders in our church are kind of older, so they're trying to bring up younger people. So they have a couple programs. We go to this thing once a month where we have to read. It's a Moody book of theology. I've really learned a lot from that. So we just have to read chapters from that, and then there's a series of questions. We meet like once a month or something.
So it's been about 10 years, 9 or 10 years since your parents passed?
Yeah, but
so since then, what have been the avenues you've taken to try to understand, who God is to you and who Jesus is to you?
I mean, I have a few friends, outside of our church that, I think have helped a lot, and not just in talking strictly about the Bible, but just, giving me a perspective on my journey itself, just having, strong supportive people around you has helped a lot. And then even people within our church, we have other people that are in our growth group are really great people. I think that's helped a lot. I kind of do a lot of activities outside of church and strong friendships and things like that. I think have helped quite a bit.
Yeah, I think a good support system of people to talk to is definitely important. Do you kind of have moments of grief happen periodically with things that remind you of your parents, or what do things ever sneak up on you? I know that happens with my wife, especially because she had lost her brother about I want to say about 8 years back. It kind of sneaks up in weird places. Have you ever, does that happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like almost every day there's something that reminds me. And I mean, I see it as a positive just because it makes me think about them more and I remember them more. And, there's always some that happens that, it triggers a positive memory that we had, or, I mean, and occasionally I'll have like a dream where like my parents will be in it, and it's just, I mean, when you wake up, it's kind of sad because, it was just a dream, but I mean, it's just nice even having things like that, to, still have those memories and think of them. But I mean, it's kind of bittersweet, because I mean, it's sad that they're not here, but I constantly having things like that come up. So, I mean, it seems like I'm always thinking about them, and it's just, I just see it more of as a positive than anything,
Yeah. I guess that's a good way to look at it. I mean, it's strange because when people are here and then they're gone, but they're in a way they're a part of your life. Like they're still here forever. Like a part of them kind of lives on through you, which is it's a really odd thing, and it's something that I think about frequently. Just how one person or two people can still live on in a way. It's really really weird once you kind of think about it and ponder on it. Have you been able to use this to help anyone else who's gone through this? What kind of advice have you given other people? Has that happened?
I haven't really had a chance to, have like a long conversation with someone, and it's always kind of like I've known somebody that's dealt with it, and I extend, if they ever need to talk about it, things like that. Mm-hmm. One of my really close friends, his sister had a boyfriend that passed away from leukemia pretty young, and so that was really rough. But I wasn't like super close with her, but I just kind of, I told her if she ever needs to talk about it, what you're going through, things like that. So. Yeah,
and then really that's all you can do,
Yeah,
you can't force on anyone, but I think just being there and knowing that someone is there that has gone through it, I think that helps, even just knowing that. So
definitely.
Who would you say that that God is to you, like right now? Like how do you sum up God in all this?
I can talk to him about anything, just whatever's going on in my life. It's just nice to be able to pray, and just I know that no matter what's going on, good or bad, that I can just trust in him, and that everything is going to work out for the best, no matter what it is. I just have a total faith and trust in him. So that's kind of a nice feeling to have, and no matter what. And one thing that's kind of has caused me to really step up too is, it's like we don't have any kids yet, but we're trying at this point. But I mean, I just kind of want to be a better, spiritual leader for our family and stuff. So because there's been times where I've noticed that my wife, she's hasn't really got on me, but you can kind of tell that she thought I wasn't really being the best spiritual leader, and I mean, it's not, I mean, it wasn't something that was like a huge problem or anything. It's just, I mean, I was being lazy, and I even knew it myself, and it's just kind of nice to have someone there to remind you of that, basically.
Yeah, that's been a point of contention in my kind of deconstruction of my faith, is my wife's, for the kids, like, that I'm not being that piece of the puzzle in the family, that all these questions are that I've had and everything that I've gone through in this journey for the search for truth, like ultimate truth. It's not laying down a firm foundation, but I kind of take that in stride. I think that I'm gonna be there for my kids when tough questions happen, and I kind of look at it that way. I want to let my kids give them the foundation of kind of grace, ultimate grace and love, and kind of go from there. And as they have questions, hopefully I'm there to talk to them and everything. And that's kind of how I see my spiritual leadership in the family is. It's not, the one person that has all the answers, but at least I can be there to help, to kind of encourage thought and encourage study and encourage kind of deeper questions. So I think there's different levels of spiritual leadership. Does your church do they kind of think that have it like that the man is the ultimate spiritual leader type thing, or how does that is that kind of a church doctrine thing? How does your church kind of handle that spiritual leadership stuff?
I mean, as far as like being able to lead, like women aren't really in roles of leadership, but I mean, I know a lot of, especially like in our growth group, the leaders that it's a husband and wife, and the wife is pretty active too. So I would say it's kind of 50-50, but there are certain instances that I've noticed where, the church is kind of steadfast that, the man is the spiritual leader. Mm-hmm. But I've kind of seen different areas where it's like the wife is very supportive and she's active as a leader too. But mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't know if it's like this at your church, but it just seems kind of like, and my wife is kind of, I felt like too, that like a lot of the women don't really work, and it's not like they say the women can't work, but it just seems like in our church, a lot of the women, stay at home, and my wife works and she likes, having a career and stuff, and she just kind of, it gets annoyed sometimes because a lot of the events are more, the ones that are geared towards women are kind of like in the mornings and stuff like that. Obviously when she can't go and stuff. But.
Right. My wife's a career-oriented person too. She's, she's always worked, and even when she's tried not to work, she always gets that itch to work. So I think every woman's different with that. But I think, in Maine, kind of, I guess, modern American, Christianity, the mainstream Christianity, I don't know. I don't even know. That seems to be it falls into that, the mainline Christianity, that the husband works, the woman takes care of the home and the kids, and
yeah,
and the husband's the spiritual leader, and kind of. But then when you kind of lean more towards more liberal leaning churches, it's a little bit different. Where there's women in there's who are pastors and in leadership positions and things like that. But it's all what works for you, in my opinion. What's been the biggest thing that's helped you kind of move on from dealing with the death of your parents?
I would say, other than having a strong support group, I think the thing that's really helped is my wife. Because I mean, if I wouldn't have, if she wouldn't have been in the picture, I have friends and stuff that are supportive, but having someone like my wife was great. I just felt that having those thoughts of anger weren't really worth it. I just felt that I needed to move on, and having a strong support from friends and family, and then just kind of working through that really helped. So,
mm-hmm. That's good. I mean, it sounds like you didn't. Everyone's different, and there's different, depths of anger or darkness people can go to when they deal with grief. And it sounds like you had, because your support group, your friends and family, and your wife, that you fortunately didn't have to go. You didn't hit rock bottom, which is good. I mean, a lot of people will kind of spiral out into hitting like a rock bottom in their faith and everything else, and let it just kind of consume them. So, but you fortunately didn't hit didn't have to go that far, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's important. I think that's why there's a lot of I know that when my brother-in-law died, there's a support group called Heaven Bound that my in-laws found. It was super beneficial, I think, with them mourning the loss of their son, my wife's brother, and I think that's important. I think I would say if you're someone dealing with grief, if you don't have a strong support group, try to find one. Go to a nearby church or nearby. I don't even know where you would find it. I mean, Facebook maybe even, it looks for things in your location. Facebook may be a good place to kind of search, but it's not going to benefit you or to kind of deal with it on your own. So I guess that's the kind of advice I would give someone if they were going through grief. Would you agree or?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the rate of suicide has gotten crazy recently, and even I've known a few people here, locally and stuff that I haven't known the people well that have committed suicide, but just kind of through other people that I knew, and it's just kind of sad that they didn't have that support group, or basically to be able to work through their issues. So yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weird to say for me, just because I'm skeptical of certain churches and things like that. But I think the best place to start your search would be a local church, because they tend to be a good resource, for this type of thing to at least get started. So fortunately you didn't have to join any support groups or anything like that. You had a strong enough group of people around you that you didn't feel like, you feel like you didn't need any extra therapy or anything like that, right?
I mean, there's been times where I thought, I've known people that have went through therapy, and I know it's a good thing, but I kind of had enough, close friends and family that, I felt that I could talk about anything with. So,
yeah,
I just felt I needed actual therapy. So,
yeah. There's many times where I think I actually need therapy. I've said that many times on the show for multiple reasons. But yeah, therapy can be a good thing. So in dealing with all this and your relationship with God, and did you feel a moment where you had some clarity as far as who Jesus was in your life? Were you going through everything, and did you have kind of an aha moment when you knew that you were in the right place spiritually, or was it just gradual? I know that many people, their stories of their journeys are varied, and some people have like that one moment where they feel like they heard God or they heard Jesus. Has anything like that happened to you with dealing with all this in your journey, or has it been kind of a slow, steady climb?
I can't really think of like a specific moment where it was just probably throughout the process of, the last few years, by just praying more and putting a lot more effort in. I've kind of felt that things that I've prayed about have really helped, and just the more that I pray and trust in God, I've like certain decisions that I've wanted to make that I've prayed on, I've kind of felt like from just praying, that I was making the right decision, and it working out that way. So, I can't really think of, like a defining moment.
Yeah. In America here, we're a pretty sensationalist society, and a lot of churches kind of prey on that a little bit, where they want to hear the spectacular story, and all the stories you hear about are these spectacular things where like the sky is opened up, or somebody heard an audible voice, or things like that. But I think most of us kind of going through these journeys, it's not like that. And I think for me, it's a point of where I feel like, am I doing something wrong? That I'm not having any crazy stories to tell. But I really think that's most of us. It's most of us on this journey. It's a slow, steady progress. It's kind of our one-on-one relationship with God or whoever you want to call him or her. I don't know. Just being a little, yeah. But yeah, it's a, a faith journey is one has many turns, and I think a lot of people need to hear more kind of grounded stories of faith, and because otherwise I feel like you would get frustrated. And I know I do. If I just heard, there's a podcast, it's with, have you heard of the band Gungor?
Yeah.
Michael Gungor, he was a worship leader, and now he's kind of, in the past few years, gone through his deconstruction and of faith, and he's going through things, and he has a podcast called The Liturgist, I believe I say it right.
Oh, I think I saw you like.
Yeah, I've been tweeting the shit out of it because it's been really great. It's actually a really great podcast. Way better than mine, but I don't know. They're good, but there's one where the co-host Science Mike. He was an atheist he was Christian to atheist back to Christian, but his faith's a little bit different than kind of the mainstream, I guess, Christianity. But he's back Christian, believing in Jesus and everything. But he had like this amazing story that made me like well up, and I was just crying in my cubicle. But Michael Gungor hasn't had that experience. He's still searching, and he kind of felt bad, about it. But I'm sitting here in my car or whatever listening to this podcast, and I'm just thinking like, well, that's most of us, Michael, like most of us are like you. And it's funny because you see someone like Michael Gungor who was a worship leader, and you just think, oh, he felt it every week when he's, on stage leading worship, right? Because that's why he's the worship leader. He's more in touch with God. So it's amazing. It's been incredible to kind of see him on his own faith journey. It kind of makes me feel a little more grounded with the past few years, how I've deconstructed my faith and have been kind of searching for the ultimate, I guess, truth in things, and kind of trying to read the Bible and approach things differently. So I think as long as we're not certain about everything, I think we're all on a good path. That's kind of where I come from. Where do you stand as far as that goes? Do you feel pressure to kind of understand it all now, or what's the church you're in, how do they approach?
I think they're really great. I mean, I think they want everybody to continue to grow. I don't feel pressured at all to be an expert, yet. It's just kind of interesting because when my wife and I started this, it's called like SEAL training. It's basically like a way to equip like new leaders in the church. And we went to a couple meetings. It's like once a month, but like some of the people in there, man, it's like you hear them talking, and it's like, whoa, I'm like way behind, where they're at. So it's kind of intimidating in a way, but I'm just gonna go at my pace, and I don't feel pressured.
No one's pressuring you to give up the music and the horror movies yet.
Not yet.
Do you Here's one thing I wanted to ask you. Do you? I feel like I've approached horror movies from a different perspective, I think, since losing a couple people that I was close with. But there's sometimes where I kind of crave them a little more because they do, I guess, touch on life and death and the uncertainty of it all. Did your approach to horror movies change for a while when you were going through all that? It's funny because the week that my brother-in-law passed away, I immediately went out, and and he likes scary movies and stuff too, and I immediately went out to Best Buy and I bought as many horror movies as I possibly could. It's really weird.
I would say it's changed a little bit because when I was in college, I worked at Suncoast, and my manager there, he was, I don't know, I mean, he's the kind of guy that you've probably seen like every horror movie, and like he turned me on to a lot of like, so back then I was just kind of like, my mindset was I was trying to watch I just wanted to see something that was going to like shock me or something, trying to watch everything I could. And then, after all of this happened, I mean, I wouldn't say that my taste has changed a lot, but I mean, I'm not really into the like, the hardcore gory stuff, where it doesn't really serve a purpose, or doesn't really, bring anything to the story and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of more selective about watching the really, there's a lot of like, especially like in the Facebook groups. I mean, there's all these really, really bad, like independent horror movies that I'm like, I don't really have any interest in seeing those just because half of them aren't good. But
there's the quality issue number one.
I can't really think of anything specific like after that happened that like, oh no, I don't want to watch this or
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of this stuff that and then I watched with my dad. Has kind of like a sentimental aspect to it. So you're always kind of. It seems like when you rewatch them, they're not as great as you remember. A sentimental aspect to them and stuff. So. Yeah,
you approach it more like because you do you think like maybe like, oh, this is a movie that my dad would have liked if you're watching like a newer movie, or do you approach these films that way? Because I know that I approach film that way with my brother-in-law for sure, because he was way into like sci-fi and horror movies and things like that, and I'm always like, oh man, he would have really dug that flick,
Yeah, sometimes I'll find myself thinking like that. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure my dad would have liked this, or And one thing that's kind of interesting is a few nights ago, there's this theme park pretty close to where I live with a friend of mine. They have, like the whole Halloween thing, but they have a roller coaster there that used to be at Knott's Berry Farm, like when I was a kid, and it was kind of funny because my dad went on. He wanted me to go on it with him, but I was too scared. I was probably like 8 or 9 or something. And it's kind of funny because they have it here now, and I've went on it several times, and it's probably like one of my favorite roller coasters to go on. So I don't know if part of the reason why I like going on it is just because I remember that whole aspect that I never went on it with him or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah. Very fascinating how your brain works with all that and kind of with memories and dealing with that. Well, cool, man. I want to thank you for sharing your story with us, and I'm hoping my hope is if any of you are listening, hopefully this kind of helped you guys through anything you're going through, and I think we're all kind of on this weird journey, and I feel like the older we get, the more people are going to be coming in and out of our lives, and we're not guaranteed another day. So it's my idea behind it's just to live life to its fullest while I'm here, and make as much of an impact as I can, positive impact, on those around me. And that's really all I can do, is just enjoy life and enjoy those around me, and hopefully when I go, people have some good stories. And a massive movie sale, because I know that my wife's not going to want to keep all these.
Oh yeah.
Well, I really do, wish you all the best of this, and I'm glad it's cool to see that you've dealt with this, really really positively, like you said, you didn't go to the deepest, darkest places. You really had a good support group and good people surrounding you. So that's great. All right, man. Thank you for talking.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's podcast. I want to thank all of you for listening to the show. You can track us down over at theaxpx.com. I would love to hear from you, your stories, your journey, the things that you are going through, and frustrations or things that are awesome with your faith journey or whatever it is that you're on. You can find us on Twitter at the AxPx. Drop us a line there. And I want to thank all of you for reconnecting with the show. Those of you who have listened to the past and are picking this back up again, I want to thank all of you and welcome all of you for coming back and listening to this. Hope you guys enjoy it and get something out of it. And, I'm kind of playing it by ear as things go along here. So if you have any suggestions for guests or anything like that, I would love to hear from you, or suggestions on topics. And I know some old voices are coming back to the show in the next few weeks here. I'll probably have Joey back on, as well as a few other guests, and as well as new guests. So Hope you all have a great week. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.
We must search for what is truth.
What is truth? And what is God?
You don't really want an answer to that question.
The first duty is to the truth, whether it's scientific truth or historical truth or personal truth.
That's really what you want in life. You want to feel connected. You want to feel relevant. You want to feel like you're a participant in the goings-on of activities and events around you. That's precisely what we are, just by being alive.